right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everyone can hear me okay. My name is Kayla Cox. I am the owner of this YouTube channel, 6 Miles to Supper, and I've lost 80 pounds with intermittent fasting, specifically OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. For the bulk of my weight loss, that's what I was doing, although I did start out with a very short fasting window, actually, and worked my way up to OMAD. And I've maintained that weight loss for several years now, and I do intermittent fasting in a very laid-back way, and I also walk 6 miles a day, 6 days a week, so Monday through Saturdays I'm doing that. I take Sundays completely off. I take Sundays off from fasting and from my walking. So I also have a podcast that you can listen to anywhere where you get your podcast, or you can listen to my website. And I've written a couple of books about my weight loss journey. The first one is The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, and the other one is called Overcoming Weight Loss Obstacles. So you can check those out if you need additional help. And during this live Q&A, please submit your questions and I'll do my best to answer them. I can only really answer based on my own experience with weight loss. So thank you guys for joining. So I'll go ahead and get into the first question. And that comes from Eileen Young, and she asks, can you suggest shoes for 6 miles of walking? And that's such a good question. Really, my favorite way to walk is barefoot, and like barefoot through the woods. That would be my absolute favorite way to walk 6 miles. But in Florida, unfortunately, it's super hot on the feet if you try to do that like out in the sun. And so I have a couple of pairs that I like, and so I'm gonna show you. So this is actually my favorite shoe to walk in, and you can see this is an older pair, and I don't really use these shoes anymore for anything other than just kind of like if I'm painting or doing something with bleach. So these are New Balance Orishis, I think version 2. The last time I bought some, because you see how like that gets so like slick on the bottom. I love them because they're really lightweight, and I just enjoy like the way they feel. They fit my foot really well. I have kind of a wide foot. I thought, well, I'm going to get something with a thicker sole. So I got these Saucony's Excursion TR15s, I guess is what they're called. I've enjoyed these, but there are a couple of things I'll say. They're heavier, so which I knew I was going to get into because the sole is thicker. But you can see I've already worn down like I don't know, my stripe pattern or whatever. Like this part is completely gone, and this part is like still up where it's supposed to be. So yeah, I don't know. I go through the shoes, I guess. I mean, I really I try to wear them out before I change them. These have been good though. Black was probably not the best choice for hot Florida summers, but anyway. But what I would recommend is go with whatever fits your feet and feels comfortable. I prefer lightweight as opposed to a heavier shoe, and especially paying attention to the grippiness of the bottom. I think that's really important. So many shoes these days are like super slick on the bottom. I don't know what's going on. Like it's like a new thing. It used to be that like it seemed like all soles on the bottom of your shoe, like they would be just like rubber, but now there's like this white version. I don't know. I don't like that, but anything with a grippy bottom, so that you don't trip and fall, because when you're walking outside, sometimes you're walking on slick sidewalks and things like that. So those are what I would say. Okay, let's see here. Janet Harrison says, how do you get motivated to start again after a relapse? Okay, so that is hard. And I mean, so to give you a little backstory, if you don't know my story, I struggled with my weight from the time I was like 6 years old. I went to the doctor and he put me on a diet, and I just remember being mortified. And then just as a kid and growing up in my teens, I was always on a diet, or, you know, trying to lose weight, or I was gaining the weight back. You know, like I was chunky more often than I was at, you know, a good weight. And that pattern continued until I lost a good bit of weight, and then around like the age of 16, 17, I was at a good weight, went to college, still at a good weight, actually about where I am right now. And then once I got married and started having kids, it was like a weight loss, roller coaster. I'd put weight on because I was pregnant. I put on probably 60, 70 pounds, I think with each kid. And usually didn't like lose all the weight before I, got pregnant again. So, and I was always struggling with my weight. I was always like gaining it back, or, I'd lose a little bit and then I'd gain, and it did. So I definitely understand where you're coming from. I've done that a lot, where you quit, and then because you lose motivation for whatever reason, and then it's like, how do I get back to it? So here's what works for me. One thing that really helps is to know why you want to lose weight in the first place. Knowing why. Because for me, what happened a lot of times was I didn't really know why I was trying to lose weight. It was kind of like, a lot of times it was more like I felt like other people wanted me to lose weight. And so then, it was easy to quit, and it was hard to get back on plan, because it was kind of like, why am I even doing this? Once I got really clear on that, then it was easier to just stay on plan, and if I kind of had a little slip up or something, to get back on. But there's also an important thing that you should do, like whenever you have a moment of just like, what happened? Because it happens all the time. I think to everybody on various parts of the weight loss journey, you have, maybe it's even just one meal where it's kind of like, what happened? Like, like I overate, like by a lot. Why did I do that? Like, I feel miserable right now. Why did I do that? And just in that moment, assessing, like taking some time to figure out what actually happened. What was going on? Was something upsetting you during the meal, or are you upset about something, or was it just a celebration and you just kind of like weren't paying attention? But learning something from that. And it's sometimes what can happen is the reason why you lost motivation might just be because you're miserable on the plan. Like whatever your chosen plan is, sometimes it just makes you really miserable. And that's not good. You don't want to be miserable. So just trying to figure out why. Like, why did you initially fall off the plan? Was it because you didn't understand why you were trying to lose weight? Was it because you really hate the plan that you're doing? Or sometimes it's things like you're scared to lose weight. There are plenty of people out there who, they've had trauma, and they use weight to kind of like insulate themselves. And so like there's a lot. So it really depends on your specific situation. So I'd say just investigate it. Try to figure out like what's going on. Sometimes it's because you're not seeing progress, right? Like motivation, for me, what was always motivating and what was always demotivating was like, it's motivating when you can see progress towards a goal. But then it's demotivating if it feels like you're stuck or you're not making progress. So, which is why I like doing like averaging your weight, 7-day average. So weighing every day, paying attention to how is the scale trending over time, setting like little sub goals instead of just saying I've got to lose 80 pounds or I've got to lose 50 pounds, whatever, trying to break those down into little sub goals so that you're constantly making a little bit of progress towards your goal. So I hope that helps you. And then once you figure that out, then I think that can help you to get motivated again. Once you kind of understand the reason for why you went off plan, it can help you get back on. Rosie Ibrahim asked, how do I be consistent? How can you be consistent with fasting? So this is a really good question, because consistency is really important. And I can't talk about consistency without also kind of cautioning you that it's important not to try to be perfect. And so it's kind of like you don't want to be so consistent and so rigid that you get the impression that you're perfect, and then that one time where you mess up, then it just causes you to completely derail. But you don't want to be so lax about it, that you're never really fasting. So consistency. This is why I like having a cheat day, just a day off, just a complete day off from fasting, because it gives me one day out of the week where I'm just eating, like what my family's eating. Oh, sorry, not the food. I'm always eating the same food, but what I mean is like it gives me a day of just like normalcy. Although I prefer OMAD. I prefer the way I feel on days where I just do OMAD. Like that is the way I feel the best. But my family is not doing OMAD, so I like to have both, the best of both worlds. But being consistent. I think a lot of times when people are having trouble with consistency, they're trying to go too fast a lot of times with fasting. So maybe they've been just eating normally, you wake up, you have breakfast, you kind of snack throughout the morning, then you have lunch, and then you have a snack like in the afternoon, and then you have supper, and then you maybe have a snack in front of the TV. I mean, that's normal. I mean, that was my life. Certainly, like that's how I was like part Hobbit or something. But then when you say, well, I'm going to do intermittent fasting, well, some people try to say, well, I'm going to just do an 18-6. So then they like have this short window of eating, and it can seem pretty extreme, and it can seem really difficult to do. And so then what happens is you end up not being that consistent because it's hard. It feels hard and all that. So what I think is a better idea is if you're having trouble being consistent, then change your fasting window to something that feels so easy that you're going to be consistent with it. And the thing is, when you do that, you probably aren't going to lose any weight, probably. And I mean, you might. It kind of depends on you and your own habits and how much you eat and that kind of thing. But fasting is a skill. And it's more important that you learn how to be consistent with it. And the way to be consistent with something a lot of times is just to make it easier. Like just lower that bar until you can easily just jump over that bar. Just like, okay, even if it's something like, okay, I'm just not going to eat past 10 p.m. I'm not going to eat before 6 a.m. It's a very short fasting window. It's 8 hours, okay? But that's just like you start being consistent with something. You are building discipline, and then you push breakfast maybe a little bit later, and maybe you push your nighttime eating, like you cut it off a little bit earlier until you get to the point where you get to a fasting window that gives you the results you're looking for. So that's one thing. That's one way that you can become more consistent, is to make it easier. Another side to the whole fasting thing is to realize that it's mostly a mental game, because it is. Your mind can kind of play tricks on you. Like you can start to panic, like, oh, I feel slightly hungry, I gotta eat something. But when you just start to learn that you don't have to give in to every little message, right, that your body sends you. Like, it is important to listen to your body, I'll say that, but there's also this thing that can happen where you hear a signal and it's not really true. Like so many times, for me at least, when I would like feel hungry during my fasting window, what it really was stress. It was like, I'm feeling stressed about this and I want to have a snack. So just learning that discipline, which again, going back to, if you just make it easier, it can help you to build that discipline, and then you'll be consistent. But the way to become consistent is just to practice, and to think of it as a practice that you are going to mess up. And so instead of letting, if you mess up, you mess up, you screw up, you eat a little bit too early. Like you said, I was going to try to fast until 2 and you fasted until 1. Try again the next day. Like, don't like kind of spiral and get to that point where it's like, well, I'm terrible at this, why should I even try? Just always keep trying and get back on the horse. Fall 7 times, get up 8. That's a favorite saying that I've read. So okay, let's see, hopefully that helps you. JC asked, do you think you are sick less during the year doing intermittent fasting, as far as colds and flu and sinuses, etc. You know, that's an interesting question, because I don't get sick that often. But I'm not sure if that has anything to do with intermittent fasting, weight loss. It's kind of hard to tell. Life is so, multifactorial, right? It's like there's so many things that I can say. When I was obese, I also had 3 small kids. I don't quite recall, did I get sick more or less often? I mean, I feel like I've always just been like this. Like I don't get sick that often. Jay, would you agree with that? Or yeah, like I just don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I get sick any less often. I still have allergies, although this past year I didn't have any like any struggle, or hardly any struggle, with allergies, and normally I do, which I had read a long time ago, back when I first started doing intermittent fasting. That was a thing that people said, like, oh, if you do intermittent fasting, like your seasonal allergies will probably go away, and they didn't go away for me until this past year. So that could just be me, growing, getting older, and sometimes that just happens. You just aren't allergic to stuff anymore, and I'm almost 38, so who knows. But I do, just on an instinctual kind of level, I do feel like I am probably less likely to get sick because I'm not obese anymore. Like, as far as just how I feel and stuff, I feel healthier. So all right, next question. Hi Kayla, can I drink diet soda during my fasting window? And that came from Katie Downs 123. So, okay, I think it's fine. I don't drink diet soda, and the reason for that is I don't like the way they taste, and especially like Splenda sucralose, right? It messes with my stomach. I feel gross after I drink it. Like I don't know why I do, but it just messes with me, so I don't drink them. And another thing I had noticed, and this was years ago, I noticed that for me, when I would drink like Diet Coke, like with a meal at McDonald's, because I would do that. Like, you get the double quarter pounder with cheese and the fries, and then a Diet Coke to kind of make everything cancel out. But I noticed when I would order the Diet Coke, I would eat everything and still be hungry. And then I was like, well, that's really interesting. And I think I read around that time something about, there was a study done, and it said that people tended to eat more calories or feel hungrier when they had artificial sweeteners. And the theory, and again, I don't know that this is true, but the theory was that your brain gets the message, oh, I had something sweet, so I had something with calories in it, but the stomach is saying, well, no, there wasn't any calories, so it's like trying to make sense of it, and so then it keeps sending the hunger signal. That was the explanation I remember it having, which makes sense kind of to me, but the fact is, it does make me feel hungrier. So I switched at that point to just saying, okay, if I'm gonna have soda, I'm gonna drink, Coke or whatever. I don't drink Coke on a regular basis. I might have one Coke a year, maybe twice a year, like depending on if I'm just at a thing and that's what there is to drink. And I don't tend to like it. I feel like they're like too sweet, and I really don't feel good the next day for whatever reason. Like, I get addicted really quickly, I think, and I just it's like I literally feel like nauseous kind of unless I have another one. So I just don't tend to drink them. I do love to drink unsweetened sparkling water, so like LaCroix or Clear American. There's a bunch of different brands, but they don't have any fake sugars or anything. But but to get back to your question, I've talked to plenty of people who have used diet sodas, like they just, that's what they drink, and they lose the weight. They I would say whatever gets you through the fasting window, and whatever you need to drink to keep yourself on plan. So, there you go. Dreaming Cat Studio said, what are 3 things you do to counter hunger while fasting? I drink water and have salt. I could use more ideas. Okay. 3 things to do. Okay. Before I give you the 3 things, I'll say I try to do the whole, let's see, what would you call that? There's a phrase that I'm trying to remember here. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, in other words, I try to make it so that I am not to that point of being that hungry during the fasting window. So I try to eat enough so that I feel sustained throughout the fasting window. I never wanted to feel miserable. So of course you're going to feel somewhat hungry. I mean, ultimately, when you are losing weight, it does mean you are in a deficit. Like your body isn't just using the food that you're eating, it's also using the body using the energy that is stored. So you will feel a bit of hunger. But, okay, so what I would do, the biggest thing would be to keep busy. Usually doing household chores, cleaning, all that kind of stuff. Knocking off stuff on my to-do list. Number 2, actually this might be number 1. Flip that around. Number 1 thing I would do would be get my steps in. Especially in the early days, that was my go-to. It's like, I feel hungry right now. Do I have steps to get in? Yes, I do. Because especially in the early days, I was like procrastinating all the time about my steps. I had this rule. I'm not going to go to bed until I get my steps in. And even if that means it's midnight, like I have to get them in before midnight. And a lot of times it was like 11:30, 11:45, and I was getting my last steps in. So getting my steps in, keeping myself busy doing like household chores, doing things on my to-do list. The 3rd thing I would do, be creative, draw. I love to draw. Paint, any kind of creative kind of activity that keeps your hands busy. So, like that could be cross stitching, putting together jigsaw puzzles, love doing that, crossword puzzles, any kind of thing like that kind of like uses your mind and your hands. And also, I'll give you a 4th one, which would be tied for 3rd place also for me, reading. I love to read, and just having that time, it gave me permission to sit down and read more. Like, it's a weird thing, and it's probably a mom thing, but I would always feel really guilty about sitting down and just reading, like, because there's always housework to be done and all that kind of thing. So I would feel guilty. But when I was doing intermittent fasting, I could like tell myself, normally you would be eating right now. So instead of eating, which would be, like a thing that you'd be doing, you can use this time differently. You can use it to read or draw or whatever. So those are some things. Mainly it's keep busy though. Whatever you like to do that gets your mind off of eating. Another thing too. Sorry, I gotta add this. Coffee. I would drink coffee with half and half. I love my coffee. And generally I would have it like twice or 3 times a day during my fasting window. So yeah. And that always curbed my hunger a lot. So there you go. All right. Ancestral living and nutrition. Do you think being overweight stopped you from feeling like yourself? Do you think being overweight? Okay. At first I read it like the flip of that. I thought you meant like once I lost the weight, did I stop feeling like myself? In some ways, yes. There was a lot of pain, I think, that went along, and just a lot of mental space that was constantly being taken up by, feeling bad about like where my weight was, feeling uncomfortable, just feeling uncomfortable in my skin. And like I mentioned, when I was like 17, I was at this place where I was, I felt kind of like that was like, man, I was really rocking and rolling at that time, as far as like my weight was in a good place. I was feeling really good, feeling myself, I guess. And so when I would compare that to, like I would, when I was obese, I would feel like that's that was more me than this is me, if that makes sense. And so yeah, I would say, yeah, I think that it didn't stop me completely from being myself, because I mean, obviously you are you, no matter what weight you are. But it did change how I felt about myself. I think because it takes up so much mental space, and it was a constant worry. It was like every time I put a bite of food in my mouth, it was like this war in my head about, I wanted to just eat normally. Like, I didn't want to be thinking about this, but every bite, it's like I'm just making myself more overweight. And, it was like, and eating takes up a lot of your day, or it did at that point for me. So there was like a lot of negativity. But then I also think there was, my kids, and I can certainly remember times of being really happy and just having an overall kind of happy life. So I guess life's always like that, there's the good and the bad, but I feel more myself by getting the weight off. Yeah. Now that I've gotten the weight off. Hopefully that answers it. Ancestral Living also asked, are your legs really strong from that much walking daily? I feel like they're pretty strong. I don't often like test that, like as far as I don't lift weights. Although if I was gonna change my exercise at all, that would be one thing I would get back into, is powerlifting. I love that. I hurt my back when I was doing it back in 2015, and I've not gotten back into it, but I really do enjoy lifting heavy things. But I do think the walking does help me maintain a certain level of fitness that I wouldn't otherwise have, like just lifting heavy things. Like I can still, pick up heavy stuff and move it around. Even sprinting, like I remember being pretty surprised at myself, like, because I just walk consistently. I don't run, but if I ever do, just decide to sprint, I'm really surprised at like my stamina, like, and how I don't breathe so hard. Like I remember clearly, being, it was like I was 222 pounds, maybe more, because at that point, this was in 2014. I had my I've had enough moment, and I was trying to lose weight, not really sticking with anything. And at one point I was like, I'm going to run 3 miles a day. And so I would get out there and I would jog, and I would be so out of breath. I mean, just like couldn't breathe. And so it's really neat these days to just like sprint, just flat out, and then to not be like dying from like not being able to breathe. So I think it does help. I don't know how strong I am though. Same person asked, do you notice a huge difference in energy dropping the weight? Yeah. Like when I was overweight, especially obese, I will say, like, in my experience, there was a big difference between being like obese and even just getting into the overweight BMI. I felt a lot better. And then just being in the lower range of overweight, like just getting towards the normal BMI, my energy levels just kept going up and up and up. But yeah, I mean, I feel way younger nowadays as compared to how I felt when I was, well, let's say I was 30. Actually I was 20, let's say I would have been 29 when I had my I've had enough moment. And so that was the time when I was kind of beginning that journey. And I remember being really tired. Now I also had 3 small kids, and that can tire you out too. So, but just overall, I mean, I wake up in the morning, I feel good. I walk 6 miles. I get a lot accomplished, and I sleep well. So yeah, I think it's made a huge difference in my energy levels. And I also want to know, do I ever get lightheaded during a fast? Now, okay, so I've done 2 5-day fasts, and I did those after I got all the weight off that I wanted to get off, because I did not want to do a 5-day fast for weight loss purposes, and I did not want that kind of I felt like that would just be really bad for my mental health, that I didn't think it was a good idea to drop weight quickly in an unsustainable kind of way. So I've done 2 of those. One in I think it was 2018, and then another one in 2020. And so those fasts, I do remember having some lightheadedness, because 5 days without eating, it will do that to you. But I'm trying to think if I've had moments of being lightheaded otherwise. I don't really. One thing I have experienced sometimes is kind of I've noticed this kind of thing when I've just had 2 meals or 3 meals. It doesn't seem so tied to any particular kind of fasting thing for me. Like if you stand up too quick, sometimes it's like, whoa, that kind of thing. I've had that happen, but not on a regular basis. And if I ever did experience any kind of negative symptoms like headaches, just feeling tired, feeling nauseous, I would always take that as a sign I need to eat more during my eating window, or at my 1 meal, depending on what I was doing at the time. All right. Let's see. Shapali Khanum says, "Hi, it's Shafali from the UK, and starting my 40-pound weight loss journey using OMAD. I would like to know what happened. I would like to know what supplements I should take." Well, I take no supplements, and I know that that some people are really big into supplements, and I say, have at it, whatever floats your boat. I don't take any. A long time ago, there was one point in my life, I think I read a Dr. Oz book, and man, he recommended so many supplements. We were taking so many supplements at that time, and I felt fine. I didn't notice a huge difference in how I felt. And so then over the course of time, I just stopped taking them. And then I did some more research, and I saw some studies that seemed to suggest that it might actually increase the risk of cancer, even by just a tiny little bit. And, some studies that said they don't do anything. And then, but there are other studies that say, it's the best thing ever. And it's hard to know, who to believe. So I think my philosophy kind of is like this. I believe we are created to just eat the food, and I question, the idea that we need to take supplements, I guess, because it's kind of like an unnatural kind of process. That's a lot of, whatever you're about to put in your body, that if you were just eating normal quantities of food, you wouldn't get. So, I'm not opposed to them, and it's one of those things. I feel fine, and like I said, I don't get sick very often. I feel really good overall, so I'm not into supplements. But there you go. All right. KC asked, "Do you get cold during your fast?" Not cold, but I will say this. So I've noticed, hormonally speaking, and I think this is true for most women. Depending on where I'm at in my cycle, I do get more cold sensitive. So a week or maybe a few days before my period, yeah, I'm a lot more cold sensitive. I'll need a long sleeve shirt if we're normally in short sleeves and stuff like that. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't notice that. Although I will say, I have noticed that after eating, I do feel hot, and I think that's the thermogenic thing with food, right? Like your body, once it starts digesting and everything, it does give it heat, it gives off heat. So, and I imagine that varies from person to person. I tend to run hot, I think. Like, I sweat a lot, and so I'm hot-natured, I guess. All right, T.R. LaFrance says, have you ever fasted for longer than 24 hours? Yes. So like I said, I've done 2 5-day fasts. The first one I did with black coffee only, which that made me even more miserable. so the next time I did it water only. And when I say water only, I did put salt and potassium, right, Jay? Potassium? Yeah. In, like, there's some sort of, like, a recipe I found for, I think it's called Keto Aid or something like that. But it tasted so gross, and I hated that stuff. But I was trying not to cramp up. I will say, the 5-day fast that I did, the first one was pretty miserable. The second one was really miserable. Like, I get this really bad lower back pain when I'm doing these extended fasts. Like, and it's pretty interesting. From the research I've been able to do, it seems to point to the that it might be something to do with, like, your immune system kind of, like, rejuvenating or something like that. Because with leukemia, not leukemia patients, people who have undergone chemotherapy, like, they're given a certain type of medication to help their immune system, like, build up quicker, and they experience lower back pain. Anyway, I mean, this is kind of like stuff that I've sort of researched, so you'd want to do your own research about all this stuff. I'm not a doctor. I do not play one on the internet. So anyway, my point is, the 5-day fast, even though they're interesting and they're they do teach us stuff, like, they really do. Like, it's interesting to go 5 days without food and to see what that's like, and to actually see how it's not so bad in some ways. Like, the actual food part, not having food for 5 days, is not so bad. It's just all the other things that go with it. It makes you really grateful for the food, I think. And then as far as just on a day-to-day basis, though, I don't do that. Like, most of the time I would be doing 24-hour fast, because OMAD, I generally keep my OMAD at the same time each day. But there are occasions where, due to, scheduling or whatever, my meal might be earlier in the day on one day and then later in the day on the next day. So sometimes I'm doing, say, like a 27, 28, 30-hour fast as opposed to 24. But then, it would be counteractive, because really the day before it was maybe shorter than a 24-hour fast. But so on average, it's just 24. Let's see. Jada Smile says, "Hi Kayla, I've been watching your videos. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3 kids. I feel like my weight is spiraling. Oh. I'm going to try your way. I'm from Ireland. Is half and half, creamer and light cream." Okay. Well, so cool that you're from Ireland. I would love to go to Ireland. It's on my bucket list. I just imagine it's so, it is beautiful over there. But I would love to go. And I'm sorry. I am also a stay-at-home mom. I've always been at home with my kids, and also I have 3, and I've definitely been where you're at, where it's like I just feel like my weight is spiraling out of my control, and so you're going to be fine. Just be patient. Be very patient. Ireland. Okay, so half and half. Half and half here in America is half heavy cream and half milk. So like a 1-to-1 ratio. Like, so if you have a cup of milk and a cup of heavy cream, dump that together and that gives you half and half. I think I've heard some people call it double cream in the UK, but I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that. I wish I could remember. Jay, do you know how many calories? Could you look that up? Because that would at least give you kind of a
12% butterfat. I think
12% butterfat? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Jay can put that on the screen, or maybe in the chat. But anyway, Jada, you're going to be just fine. it just takes action. I mean, the whole weight loss thing is really just about taking consistent action, making little changes, and sticking with them over time. Kim Morris says, what are your thoughts of adding a little sweet to morning coffee during the fast? I know it would spike insulin, but just can't do black coffee yet. Hey, I'm right there with you. I hate black coffee. I'm doing an 18-6 intermittent fasting currently and slowly working my way up to OMAD. Okay, so when I first started with intermittent fasting, I was putting a tablespoon of sugar in my coffee because I loved my coffee a certain way. And that is what I did for, I think, the first couple of months. I realized, or I thought at the time, I was like, I doubt this will work for the long term if I keep having sugar. There were several things in my mind. The first one was, you're really not supposed to have any calories, and here I am having sugar and cream. And so I compromised with myself. I thought, okay, I'll do the cream because to me that was more important than the sugar. I had tried like black coffee with just sugar, and I did not like that. I liked it with cream. So I thought, I think I can get to the point where I like it with just cream, no sugar. And so I just slowly weaned myself down from that. In hindsight, I think, and I don't know for sure because I didn't do this, I think I probably could have still lost the weight and kept it off if I kept that tablespoon of sugar. That's my own opinion. But here's how I know that yes, it could work, because people lose weight all the time with not doing any intermittent fasting at all, right? It's just about figuring out how to eat the right amount of food, and so I think for me it was good to get rid of the sugar just because it taught me some stuff about, just like learning to like things. But now I don't miss the sugar in my coffee. And in fact, like if I get served sugar in my coffee, like, because if you order cream only, so many times they put sugar in it. And so I usually don't like it. Although, we did make Irish coffee the other day and it has brown sugar in it and I enjoyed it. So, the point is, you don't have to be too strict with yourself. Like you got to figure out what works for you. And so I think it's fine. I think, having a little bit of sugar in your coffee. In fact, there was a study done, and you have to be careful with studies, but people who added like a spoon, like a teaspoon of sugar in their coffee, lived longer. In a study that they did, like they studied people who had black coffee versus people who had like coffee with sugar, and people who drank no coffee. And the people who drank coffee with sugar in it did better. So I think what it comes down to is just not worrying too much about all that stuff. But good luck to you, Kim. Let's see. Leslie Jones says, today I am only eating the one time. I usually eat twice, doing an 18-6 mostly, but today I'm going longer and to a favorite restaurant. How do you slow yourself down from overeating the one meal? That is a really excellent question, and I would say still the thing that I still work on with myself. There's so much that I still work on with myself, but this is the big one for me, is the slowing down. I have always just been a fast eater. I mean, I remember my mom, like when I was a kid, always saying, slow down, it's not going anywhere, whatever. But I'm just that kind of eater. And so it takes a lot of practice, like just being self-aware. Like one thing that helps me is to try to visualize myself kind of like trying to observe myself, right? So thinking of watching myself from above, okay? That sounds weird, but just like, maybe even thinking of it as like a camera's on you. Like what would the TV screen show if a camera was on you right now while you're eating this? And so that kind of helps me to kind of be aware of how fast I'm eating. it can be really difficult if you're out at a restaurant, especially with other people, well, either that you're really comfortable around and you're just having a good time and you're busy laughing and you're eating fast, and then other times you're nervous, or like a lot of times with me, it's like I feel uncomfortable if there's like a pause in conversation, or whatever the thing is. And so what I have noticed about myself is so many times I'll just stick a bite full in my mouth, even if I'm not particularly hungry. But so slowing down. So other things that help, saying the blessing before the meal, and just pausing to be grateful for the food that is before you, and try, like, I know that there are tricks out there like, oh, try to chew your food 20 times, or however many times. I've tried that. I have not found that to be helpful. The thing that really has helped me is to just try to slow down a little bit by thinking, how fast am I actually eating right now? If somebody's watching me, like what would they see? And I have found that if I can slow down, then that helps the overeating thing, because so many times when I've overeaten, it's because I've been eating so fast that I don't even realize that I'm full. But the other part of that too is if you are uncomfortable or or whatever, you can just keep eating, because it's like, well, I'm done, I'm full, but I'm still going to keep eating because I want to have something in my mouth. So yeah, it is difficult though, and sometimes the overeating, and this is really interesting to me, but it's like you just ignore that voice that says I'm full, right? Like, it's happened to me, and it's been a lot of work to get into the habit of, as soon as I have that thought, I'm full, or I've had enough, to just stop eating. That sounds so easy. It's like, why wouldn't you just put the fork down when you're full? But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the habit of it, or like, no, that's not who I am. I keep eating for like 5 or 10 bites after I feel full. I don't know why. I do some of the things I do, but that has been a thing. Just learning to hear that voice and to obey it, and just to say, okay, I'm full. Putting down the fork, pushing away the plate. Those are helpful things too. But yeah, that has helped me. Those are the things. It's not incredibly easy, I'll say that. It just takes a lot of practice. Okay, Shiny Eyes asked, how much time did it take to lose the 80 pounds? How many hours did you use to do it, and what was your diet? Okay, so lots of questions in there. So first, how long did it take to lose 80 pounds? Well, my whole life. No, it took me, so in 2015, that's when I finally got on the scale, and that was when I realized I was 222.2 pounds. So then I lost about 20 pounds that first year. I went to the gym every day. I was doing some intermittent fasting. I was just trying a lot of stuff. I was just trying so hard to lose weight, mostly by focusing on working out really hard. I tried to do macros. I tried to count calories, but intermittent fasting was just kind of like this thing that I kept trying. So I lost about 20 pounds, but then I hurt my back and my weight started ticking back up. I almost quit at the end of that year because I was like, I have killed myself at the gym, and I feel like I've made no progress. Like, I looked in the mirror, I was like, I can't see any difference. It was really frustrating. But in 2016, and so I decided I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do, and I'm going to stick with it. So I decided on intermittent fasting. 2016, I started with, I was probably at a 16.8 by that time. And so January 2016, I said, I'm going to do intermittent fasting 6 days a week, cheat day on Sunday, walk 6 miles a day, eat whatever I want. So I have always, during this time of weight loss and maintenance, eaten whatever I want. So I am not low carb, I am not keto, I'm not vegan, I'm not carnivore. I eat the food, spaghetti and tacos and pizza and broccoli and all the food. Nothing is off limits. Nothing is out of bounds. I eat dessert if I want it. I drink wine if I want it. I eat bread, all the things. So, so that year, so from January to November, I lost about a pound a week. So I went from about 205 down to 158. Hopefully I'm getting all these numbers right. To 158. And then in November, we're coming up on holidays, and I said, okay, am I going to be able to like keep this off? Like, it felt too good to be true because I was eating whatever I wanted, and that was so different from any other time I had lost weight. All the time when I had tried to lose weight before, I would cut out things. I would say, I can't have cake, I can't have cookies, I can't have sweet tea, I can't, like I would just, but then those things always came back into my life, and so did the weight. So I just said, I'm gonna learn how to eat all the food this time. So that's what I did. Okay, so I maintained that for like almost a year, and in I think it was September 2017, I said, I'm going to make a video about intermittent fasting. I'm going to put it on YouTube. So that's what I did. And so I started making videos about intermittent fasting and weight loss because I wanted to share what I had learned. Because I thought, I wish I had known this. I wish I had known that you don't have to, cut these things out, that you can learn how to eat the right amount of food. And so I started doing this. Well, once I started uploading the videos to YouTube, I thought, I'm still technically so I had maintained between 158 and 163 during that time. So I thought, well, I need to lose down at least to the normal BMI because I was technically 3 or 4 pounds overweight at that point. So, which in hindsight, I kind of disagree with myself. I feel like, it's still helpful. It doesn't matter that I was a couple of pounds overweight still at that point because I felt great. There really hasn't been much of a difference for me because I continued to lose weight. So I went from 158 down to 142. Okay, and that weight loss took about a year, I think. 10 months to a year. I'd have to look back at my notes to see for sure. But it was a third of a pound a week was the rate of loss. So that initial chunk when I was obese down to a normal weight or almost a normal weight, that was a pound a week. From right above the line down to just within the normal BMI, that was a third of a pound a week. It was super slow, and I was doing during that time I was doing eat one meal a day, cheat day on Sunday, walk 6 miles a day. So when you count it up, I guess it took about 2 years total to lose the 80 pounds. I think that would be fair to say. And so there you go. I think that answered all your questions, shiny eyes. Okay, Shah Yar asked, what about dry fasting? Never done it. Don't know anything about it really. I really don't know why, why some people do it that way. My understanding is you have to be very careful with that. Especially in an extended kind of fast. So I really can't speak to that. Sorry about that. Sherry Brink, what kind of foods do you eat now that you have lost the weight? Do you do any what I eat in a day videos? Oh, that has been so years ago, I did a video called Intermittent Fasting Meal Plan, I think, and so I posted on my website what I ate in a week, I think. And Jay, you can link to that, can't you? And okay, so I haven't done anything like that since then, but because for a couple of reasons. One, people can be so mean in the comment section, and I've had such a struggle with my weight that I don't want things to mess with my head. And Jay looks at the comment section. I do not. Because that's just how I can do the videos. That's just how it is. But so that list of foods that I ate that week, that's pretty much the same type of stuff I eat nowadays. But I will tell you what I've eaten recently, just to kind of give you an idea. The reason I don't do more of the like, here's what I ate in a day or here's what I ate in a week kind of videos, for a couple of reasons. One, when a subject is being observed, you're going to change your behavior. So I'm pretty sure I would change, even if I wasn't trying to, I would still change, the amounts I would eat. I would probably like throw in more vegetables, to like try to, not make it seem like I'm eating too unhealthy, and so it's a weird kind of thing when you think about these things. But I'm going to tell you, like, in the past week, to the best of my recollection, actually, it doesn't even have to be to the best of my recollection, because I've been jotting these down just for my own record keeping, because this app that I use for tracking my weight now that I don't have a Fitbit, it has like a note section. I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. I could like, just make notes of things. So this is not going to be impressive, and I like, and I want to say, look, this is just honest. This is what I've had, and I'm not saying it's right. So here we go. So last night was date night, and we had chips and queso, and 2 glasses of wine, and a part of a Mr. Good bar. We bought the king size Mr. Good bar, and like I had not quite half, and he had half, and I gave a few pieces to the kids. The night before that was scrambled eggs, fried potatoes, turkey sausage, and some peanut butter cookies. The night before that was and I want to say this particular week of eating is not the norm, but that night was 2 pieces of homemade pizza and a medium caramel fudge blizzard and a glass of wine. So there you go. The night before that, spaghetti with meat, a quickie roll, Irish coffee, and a peanut butter cookie. So there you go. Like that's a few nights, but generally speaking, my food is regular food. Like it's not any particular like anything. I would say like we don't. Here's some things we don't do. We don't often go out to eat. We rarely have fast food, and that's budgetary. That's not because I'm like, oh, you shouldn't eat that. I'm just like, that is just purely for the budget. I make pretty much everything from scratch. I mean, like, okay, you always have to qualify that. I don't mean like I make my own pasta and I make my own spaghetti sauce. Like, I just mean like I don't buy a lot of pre-packaged meal type things. So like I'm gonna make like mashed potatoes. Like I'm gonna chop up potatoes and boil them and then mash them up. Like if I'm gonna make a cake, it's gonna be made from scratch. Like I don't use box mixes and pre-packaged frosting and stuff. I make it all from scratch. So Sherry, I hope that answered your question. Okay, let's see. Patsy A says, hello Kayla, I'm having a plateau stage and my weight is stuck. Could you give me a solution to get out from the plateau stage, please? Okay, so it happens to everybody, and the big thing, the big thing is patience. And I know that's not what you want to hear. I know that it's like, just give me the thing to do. I'll do the thing, and then that way the plateau will break. But in my experience, and talking with other people who have gone through plateaus and stuff, the best thing I think to do is just to focus on consistency with your plan. The thing that can start to happen when you're going through a plateau is that you can like start to try everything, which sometimes means like, oh, I'm going to eat a lot more. Because sometimes that is kind of like the advice that gets put out there. Oh, you've been eating not enough, so now eat a bunch, and then the scale will start to move. I know that because that was something I tried at various points in my life. But I would just say, focus on consistency. Like really, really super focus on consistency. Track your weight. Weigh daily, keep track of your 7-day average, do that for 6 weeks, really pay attention to if you've had any days off plan, if your stress levels are high, like look at all those things, take action on your stress if you are feeling stressed, and then If at the end of the 6 weeks the scale is still stuck, which I would define as zero movement. Sometimes what happens is the scale is moving down just super slow. Like maybe it's a fraction of a pound a week you're losing, or maybe it's a fraction of a pound every 2 weeks that you're losing, but the scale is still moving down. But if at the end of 6 weeks nothing is happening and you still have weight left to lose, that's another thing. Sometimes people don't really have any weight left to lose and they're still trying to lose weight. So I would double check that against like a BMI chart, just to like sanity check kind of thing. Like, do I still need to lose weight? Yes, I still do, or no, I don't. Look at that. Then, if the scale is still stuck, then, look at your plan and kind of reassess and see, is there a change that you feel like is sustainable, that you could make, that you could live with? Because that's really what it comes down to. What can you live with? Because ultimately, once you get the weight off, you're going to want to... Oops. Sorry about that. That was my alarm. Sorry. I've completely lost my train of thought now. But paying attention to the scale and seeing, if there is still weight to lose, then look at the changes that you could make, that you really could stick with, and be really, really honest. I would advise being very slow to make changes. Because ultimately, like if you make a change that's like drastic, something you can't live with, yeah, you'll live with that for a little while, but eventually you're going to put that thing back in your life, and then that's when the weight can come back. So don't get rid of things that you're going to want in your life. And sometimes that might mean that number that you're at right now, that's what you're willing to do right now. And weight loss is part philosophy. Like you kind of have to think about, what is your philosophy? Like, why are you trying to get down to a lower weight? Because ultimately a lower weight does mean more restriction, and I was just talking to a friend of mine about this very thing about, there's a point at which you can say, well, yeah, I could be there at that lower weight, but then that means like I can't have a glass of wine at night, or I'd have to really watch what I'm eating, and I don't want to do that. I just want to eat, and not have to really think about it too much. So assessing that and being okay with that, if that's where you're at. Okay, let's see. Goldie's Adventures After 50. What a great name. On your OMAD, how long is your eating window now compared to when you were losing weight? Okay, so I've experimented with a lot of different things just during maintenance, like especially in the first bout of maintenance, like 2016 to 2017. I tried all sorts of different ways, like, hey, now that I've lost the weight, like, what do I need to do? That was something I really didn't know. Like, do I still need to keep doing OMAD? Do I go back to eating 3 meals a day? Do I, what do I do? I found for myself, I preferred eating like 1 meal a day, sometimes having 2. I really liked the freedom of it. Like, I found that at that weight range, like 158 to 163, I did not have to like really think about things. Okay, so these days, here's what I've found, because I got down to 142 at the end of 2018, and so then I've been maintaining, and what my maintenance goal I decided for myself was just be in the 140s, and because I found I don't feel that different. If I compare like how I feel on a day-to-day basis, as far as like how do I feel like in my skin, right? Not much of a difference between like 158 and 142 or anything in between that. Like this, it's just kind of all the same to me. What I found though is that as far as maintenance goes, for me, if I eat, say, 2 meals a day, or if or even 3, I'm gonna usually be up towards the like high 140s, low 150s. Like I definitely try to keep it below 154, because that's my like what I call my red line. Like that's the point at which I would go up into being in the overweight BMI, which technically doesn't really make that big of a difference, but mentally it's more of a thing with me. So I say, okay, like, yeah, everybody's got to find that line for themselves. I found mine was right there at 154 just because of that. But then OMAD, I can stay in the low 140s pretty easily. So as far as like the length of time of the window, so on an OMAD, when I say OMAD, I mean, I literally mean 1 meal a day. So I literally sit down to the table, I eat the food that I'm going to eat for that day, and when I stand up, I'm done. So that's probably 45 minutes of eating, and then I'm done. And so that's that. And like I said, so if I wanted it to be longer, I could. It would mean that my weight would be a little bit higher. So yeah, there you go. Alrighty. Last question. Claire San says, hi, do you feel irritated during a specific time of the day, especially before your eating window? Jay? Yeah. I feel like those questions are always like better answered by the people around you. I'm trying to be like really like, okay, think about how do I get irritable? I think sometimes I do get irritable right before like the OMAD, but I would attribute that mostly to like I'm trying to get food on the table. You know how it is, like when you're like cooking and you're trying to get everything all at once done. Now in the beginning, like in the early days, I think I did feel more hunger, right? Like that like I'm hungry and I'm angry right now. And that was like usually like right before the meal. I would like notice like I'm kind of on edge right now. I think that goes away over time though, as far as like, because your body just gets used to this. Like it's like, okay, you know, like we're gonna eat and it's not gonna be a big deal. So you in my experience, you feel less and less of that kind of irritation. But yeah, so that's been my experience. So thank you guys for all the excellent questions. I hope it was helpful. And thanks for joining me. And I guess I will see you guys next time.